HP Lovecraft was a man that held a lot of controversial opinions, even for his time. Chief among these, unsurprisingly, given the themes prevalent within so many of his short stories, is the belief that gamers should be involuntarily committed to asylums for the mentally infirm without exception. It is, therefore, ironic that so much of his work only survives today in video game form. Sometimes these games are cool and slightly underrated. Sometimes they are ahead of their time and really buggy. And sometimes the games aren't really related to his work specifically, but take a mountain of inspiration from it. I come to you today with a real banger of a Lovecraft game in my hands, and this time it's actually pretty close and somewhat faithful adaptation of one of his short stories. Dreams in the Witch House is a 2023 point-and-click adventure game by Atom Brain Games that actually wound up being a pretty unique entry in this genre for me. Much of the time, an adventure game tends to be somewhat linear. It gives you a little room to run around, solve some fun little puzzles, talk to a zany cast of characters, pick up random bits of trash off the ground that your character is just sure could come in handy later. You know, all that really fun stuff. Dreams in the Witch House does certainly do some of these things, but it adds more to the formula in other ways. You maintain hunger, sanity, and sickness. You need money to maintain these things with food, medicine, fancy underwear, or earplugs. You're a college student living off of a weekly stipend from your aunt with classes to attend, tests to study for, a paper about mathematical occult magic to write, friends to meet and make, rats to exterminate, evil sanity demolishing books to read, gutters to clean, light bulbs to change out, and an end of the world to RSVP for. When I first started the game, I actually assumed that most of these mechanics were fluff, meant to pad things out for the story, or just survival mechanics to help you manage a health bar as the story progressed. This is partially true, but I was genuinely shocked at how much replayability this game has and how much these systems interacted with that replayability and just how much can be missed on a first playthrough. The release of Silent Hill F has actually brought up a bit of a debate recently that I found interesting since I seem to fall on the less popular side of it. Should games encourage multiple playthroughs in order for the player to get the full picture without extensive usage of like a walkthrough? This may shock some of you to your core, but back when I was a wee lad playing Silent Hill 2 on my PS2, there weren't constant game releases and live service DLCs to grind every 2 weeks. Silent Hill 2 was not the only game that I owned, but it was a game that I found myself revisiting quite a lot, and I was thankful that the game had enough content to justify several playthroughs. Sure, it didn't mandate that you needed to do it to get the gist of the story, but unless you went out of your way to mercilessly exterminate every single creature that you ran across on the map, the ending that you got would probably be leave. There were then special endings that could only be received on playthrough 2, such as the rebirth ending or the funny little dog ending. On top of that, there were, of course, other secrets and Easter eggs to be found, special weapons. New playthroughs would also bring new story insights for me when I inspected things that I had not inspected before. This, of course, is not a review of either version of Silent Hill 2, although, in case it keeps you up at night, I like them both and do still prefer the original. I just wanted to use this example to support my own feelings about single-player video games having a robust amount of replayability. Sure, not every game should demand it, but I did not personally find Silent Hill F's usage of New Game Plus to be a problem in that game. These games are all single-player games. Why are you trying to knock it out in 8 hours and forget about it for the rest of your life? It isn't going anywhere. I respect that there are modern games, especially in the horror and adventure genres, that actually strive to have a little bit of mileage to them. The whole reason that I'm lumping this discussion in with this video is to say that Dreams in the Witch House has honest to God mileage, and it's clear that the developers had replayability in mind when making this game. That might feel controversial or frustrating to some players, but in my opinion, it's well worth it to explore what this game has to offer. You aren't locked to the bad ending on your first go around, but it is very likely you're going to get it or something close to it, because getting the absolute best ending actually takes a whole lot of work in figuring out systems that will probably be unclear to you, and there are actually more than a handful of endings in this game. There are characters that you may not see or interact with in some playthroughs, and the information that they may have to offer you is actually randomized each playthrough alongside puzzle solutions. Juggling your health, your grades, your money, and your sanity can actually be quite daunting at first, and I won't lie when I say that sometimes I found some of it to be a little bit repetitive. But every time I started to feel that monotony, there would be motion to the story that would actually compel me further. And on my second playthrough, when I really started to mess around with stuff, I found out that I had just let so many things slip past me on my first go around the block. It really did make the game feel like I was actually embroiled in a mystery ripped straight out of the pages of Lovecraft. Dark forces work around me constantly, and they don't just sit around waiting for me to get to their part of the story. If I'm too busy studying for my astronomy exam to figure out how to travel in between dimensions or learn chemistry on the side, then my fragile sanity might find itself on the receiving end of an eldritch beatdown. Or maybe crucial info just slips away from me and remains unnoticed. If you approach this game focusing on the wrong things, it can easily become a horrifically realistic game about trying to finish college with at least a 3.0 GPA without dying of starvation. Adam Brain, in my opinion, has probably done the absolute best job of just straight up adapting a Lovecraft story into a game that I've ever seen. The early parts of Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth had the player unarmed, investigating Innsmouth and dealing with increasingly hostile townsfolk. The game eventually progressed into being a bad shooter, with less and less of the creepy, cool investigation side of the story to do. Dreams of the Witch House is kind of like if that early vibe was maintained throughout the entire game. It's a slow and methodical journey. You aren't going to be getting into a gunfight with the Deep Ones or shooting a cannon at Dagon here, and that's a good thing. The parts that they expand upon feel natural and appropriate to the vibe of the original story. The end result is a Lovecraft story that you really get to interact with, a mystery that you get to use the tools made available to you to solve. The game really opened up for me personally when I stopped sweating the small stuff. Don't be afraid to ignore studying or skip classes. Learn chemistry. It's worth it to spend time trying to solve puzzles both in your dreams and outside of them. Save often, and don't be afraid to experiment with trial and error. There's a whole lot to do in this game, and many different ways to experience it. It actually might be the most replayable adventure game since 2019's Unavowed for me. You could play through the game as a school simulator, honestly, if you desire. There's actually an achievement for completely ignoring the occult. Or you can do what I tried to do and do the exact opposite and break your neck trying to take a peek at the blind idiot god at the center of the universe. For an $11 game at full price, it is well worth that amount in playable hours, and even if I'll still admit that some aspects of the day-to-day drudgery and maintenance of Walter's well-being can get a tad repetitive still, those excellent moments of cosmic horror and interesting conversations with people when you finally get something to click are very worth it. All in all, I have very much enjoyed my time thus far with Dreams in the Witch House, and I will be coming back for more in the future. The game looks and sounds great. There's no voice acting in it, but I never felt like that was a great detriment to the game at all. The sound design is excellent, and the pixel art is also beautiful. The story maintains the overall vibe of Lovecraft's original tale while expanding upon it appropriately and allowing you the freedom to shape each playthrough and really explore the mystery with several different endings. Atom Brain have announced that their next project is a game based on the Dunwich Horror, another Lovecraft short story. And after playing through this little gem, I can't wait to see what they've been cooking up in the lab there. If you're a fan of point-and-click adventure games, or even just want to play a Lovecraft game that actually feels faithful to the source material, please give this game a spin. I heavily recommend it. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and please feel free to subscribe for more content and like the video if you enjoyed it. Later, y'all.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.